Okay.
She's like,
Now
don't break the mic.
Oh my god. Everything is doing everything.
Okay, last second time.
Good.
What's going on, people?
Woo, we made
Yeah.
We've done it.
Yeah,
We did it. We're like a big happy family.
Yes,
I don't even know where to look.
You're welcome.
Yes.
Oh, we look good on this screen all together. Actually,
Here we go.
Power.
Can't see my leg there.
No.
It's okay. All right, good morning, guys. Welcome to episode number 18 of Wildfires Podcast. We have Deb and Girdis of WellSpring Center for Wellbeing with us this morning.
Thank
Welcome.
you. Just like to be here.
Did you guys actually know too? Fun fact. You're the first two, so move that on the show.
Woo! A little different this morning.
Yeah.
I was wondering that actually. I was like, what? I don't know that I've seen.
No, it's all
The
singles.
tour.
It's all singles. So you guys
Tour.
are the first tour.
Yeah. Luckily, we got four chairs.
Yeah, you
That's
can
not a problem.
Yeah.
If I stood, I'd be the same height. Sitting down.
So as is tradition, we're gonna tell your people who we are, and then you can tell our people who you are.
Awesome.
Really, you want to start?
Sure. Hi, people. I'm Michaela. My business is Michaela Jean Photography. I work with intimate couples. My big thing is really women's empowerment portraiture, though, and I shoot a lot in this space. This is actually my space, Maple and Moon Creative. My business partner, Katie, and I opened up Maple and Moon just last month. We rent out the space to other creatives who need a space to host a workshop, shoot a photography session, that kind of thing. And I am the other half of the Wellbeing podcast.
Yeah.
Welcome.
All right, guys. My name's Sean Adam. I am also the other 50% of Wild Hearts podcast. So yeah, that's a thing. I also have an inspirational speaking business called Up and Adam Inspirational Speaking. And that is really starting to take hold, is centering around kind of my whole journey with mental illness and really speaking upon those challenges and overcoming them and really showing people that there's an exit door and that it's okay. I also have entangled with that a book called Guts, Grit, and the Grind. Myself and 35 other authors that share their story with mental illness, and it's designed to be kind of almost like a mental fitness manual for men and women out there with those challenges. So that is me.
Cool, cool.
Awesome.
That is us. Both of
Is
us.
that-
Who all you folks?
So I'm Dr. Deb and Ayer. Thank you so much for having us. Wild Hearts on your Wild Heart podcast. I am the owner of WellSpring Center for Wellbeing in Dover, New Hampshire. We have so many cameras here. I'm like,
Yeah,
I don't know where to look. So I'm gonna just like be one with all y'all. So yeah, we're right here in Dover, New Hampshire, and we specialize in the art and practice of connection through the human physiology. We're chiropractors by trade. We do something very specific called network chiropractic, which really addresses two of the major epidemics of our world. And one is that we're all, our switch is on with our fight or flight. There's so much happening in this world that our nervous systems are kind of always on and ready for the next thing. And so our brains, our thought processes, our body processes, our ability to feel, and our ability to connect in relationship gets fragmented, as you well know. And things feel always like they're always going. And so the first thing that we do in our office is we help lift that fight or flight. We help turn on the parasympathetic part of your nervous system, the rest and digest, and just really bring you back home to your body. The second piece of that epidemic is that this world is not slowing down anytime soon unless you go off grid and kind of cut from all of this stuff. We need to, sort of like technology, we need to upgrade our systems. We need to upgrade our capacity to process life through, more effectively, so that we're not flipping that switch on all the time. And there are two ways that happen in people's spines at WellSpring Center for Wellbeing that not only lift that fight or flight, but it also helps upgrade or increase the processing capacity in which we have physically, emotionally, mentally, and even spiritually through our heart connection.
So cool.
Yeah, and been around since, WellSpring's been around since the 70s. I've been around at WellSpring since 1996.
So amazing.
And
Yeah.
I've been around WellSpring since September of 2019. I'm Dr. Girdis or Dr. G, and I had the pleasure of being taught by Deb. I'm going to get into that probably a little bit later, more about the story. I'm just really excited to be here with you guys.
Yay, thank you.
Absolutely.
We're so excited to have you both here.
Absolutely. I got all my drinks. I'm ready to go.
We have a lot of drinks going on.
Cheers.
Right now.
We do.
Well, we're definitely going to dive more into all that you do at WellSpring, but to kind of really dive into things, let's kind of share your stories with our audience. So let's start with you. Kind of take us
Because
back.
I'm the senior of the
Take
group.
us back where it all began.
Where it all began. So, I'm going to keep this as prevalent that it just keeps pulling you in as much as possible, because what I was telling these guys the other day is our story is our message. And so if we can just sort of pull back the veil and get more real in life, that's where the nuggets of, inspiration and wisdom come from. So I'm just going to trust that somehow my story can inspire your story. And you can see some of life in my view in my story. So I definitely know that I came into this world with just this trust that there was something more than what I was seeing. I couldn't have, I wouldn't have called it spiritual, I wouldn't have called it any of the sort of terms that we would use nowadays. But I definitely knew that, we all can relate that sometimes we feel different. And I definitely felt different. I grew up with 3 older brothers, so I was like the only girl, and I was always trying to be a dude to be as strong as them. And then I woke up one day and I was like, this sucks. I want to be a girl, So that was interesting. So, and I loved my brothers, by the way. But, and the other thing I noticed that just by nature of who I was, in my childhood growing up, is that I was just there this place where people would come to, and I wouldn't ask for it. It wasn't prompted, but people even Dr. G was like, you make everybody cry. And I was like, I don't make everybody cry per se. It's just, there is a love, an insatiable love I have for the human element and for the energy underneath what people are saying. And it's just, I think because I came into that way, in the world that way, people would just come to me and start sharing just by the presence of our relating. And so, growing up, I was like the person people would talk to. And I was like, even though I was sort of the popular crowd, I was also in all the other crowds, it was like secretly, because people were like, well, I like you, you don't seem to be judging me on the hat I'm wearing. It's in high school, that's hard to do, especially, I don't know, probably still, but definitely in my generation. So I knew, so when I was 18, all my friends I grew up in New England, I grew up in New Hampshire, and all my friends were going to college, and I was like a good student in that way and planned to go to college. And a lot of my friends are going to UNH or going somewhere local, and everything in me, that thing that you cannot define as to why from your mind was like, and it wasn't like I was running away at all. I was going towards something, which is something very different. But it did take this courage, and I think at 18, you're just like, your courage doesn't come from like necessarily the smarts of your history of living. You're just like, I'm moving to California because that's what I'm gonna do, So it took one conversation with a cousin of mine that lived in San Diego, and I just had such a heart connection with her. So it was like, bam, I'm doing it. And I was blessed to have parents who I know internally were probably freaking out that I was moving 3,000 miles away, and I'm the only girl, and I'm 18. But I did, and it was the best decision. And the best decision doesn't mean it was the easiest. Within a month, my cousin and her husband at the time were like, okay, you gotta go make a life, and my first apartment, I had like a mattress and nothing else, so all my clothes are like in the closet. There's a generation. Totally. So, and then I was 3,000 miles away from my whole friend, like everything I knew, my parents, my family, my friends. And so I remember my friends going like, you don't have to stay, you don't have to prove anything. And I've heard that a lot when I've made decisions based on my heart and soul, and people are like, you don't have to prove anything. Like it's all right. Like you don't have to be so tough. And I remember telling my friend, it's like, and again, I didn't have the words that I do today, but I remember going like, this is part of it. Like this is part of life. And I miss home and I miss all these things, but it's part of life. And it doesn't mean that I want to come back there. It just means this is what's happening right now, and it's really freaking uncomfortable and scary, and I'm just gonna do it, you know? So that was like, I learned that I think I had to take myself out of the element of what I knew in security, and my soul was like, here, this is where you're gonna do it. And there are so many sort of, when I look back, and I'm sure y'all can relate, like when you look back on your trajectory of your life, you're like, oh my God, I was walking on a beach, you know, at 3 a.m. with my thoughts and my soul, looking at the moon, and I'm like, I could have been like, all these things could have happened to me, right? And we can really be, live a life that we're afraid of like doing what our heart is asking us to do. And I did a lot of just following that. And so when I got to college, in San Diego, I befriended this guy in my chem lab, and I remember him being so excited. And I was already wanting to help people, because I was like, clearly I'm on this earth to help people, because people just come to me. And I was going to be a psychologist, and at the time, when I was living with my cousin, I love you so much if you're listening to this, I just knew it wasn't for me. It just felt like not matching, you know, and it was like, no, don't want to do this. And then I was like, well, maybe, you know, I'll be a medical doctor. I was trying to surf for like, what are the things that would match me to the world and where I can help people. And I was also really athletic growing up. So, and physical therapists would often come to our team and like wrap us up. And I was like, that's pretty cool too. So I went on that journey, and you know, somehow what my parents instilled in me is to like, do your homework. You know, they didn't ever tell me this, but I think just by nature of the center of gravity of who they were, I was like, well, if I want to be, let's say, a physical therapist, then I'm going to talk to physical therapists. So I'm going to see like, how happy are they? And remind me of a story about joy in a little bit, because I'm thinking back now as I'm sharing my story, I'm learning is that even back then, I wanted to know like, how happy is somebody doing what they're doing? And somehow I knew that mattered. And I know it sounds obvious, but how many of us are doing shit that we're like, okay, I gotta do this to make money, and then I can do this creative thing over here, you know? And so, so I interviewed physical therapists, and just again, everybody's like, not happy. And at that time, and so I met this guy in my chem lab, and I remember his energy. It's like we're attracted to people that have energy and that are turned on. And so he was very much turned on, and I was like, what are you so turned on about? He's like, I want to be a chiropractor. And it helped my life, blah, blah, blah. And that was my first introduction to really going, God, you know, maybe there's something about this chiropractic, because this dude is turned on, and everything else I kind of looked into didn't have that quality, at least for me. So serendipitously, I was like driving home from one of my classes at college, and I see this big like sign that says free spinal screening, and you're a college student, anything free, you're like, I'm in. Got it.
Yeah,
So
free
yeah,
is for me.
yeah, it just says yes, free spinal screening. You know, and I went in there, and I remember watching this video, and the guy, the person who was speaking was like just speaking to me. It's like when they're going through, they're like, oh, they're speaking to me personally. And that was the first time I felt, even though I didn't really know everything about chiropractic, there was some message in there that was speaking to my heart and soul. And that chiropractor, that free spinal screening, really kind of wasn't the best chiropractor. Honestly, you couldn't like adjust my neck, and it wasn't like the best experience. But you know, there's so many different past, you know, stepping stones we take that we may not enjoy, but they are part of our path. You know, and so that's kind of one of those things. And part of my diligence or my desire was like, well, I'm gonna work for a chiropractor, because then I'll really know. I'll see like, you know, what's really going on behind the scenes. And I did. And it was incredible. It was I just remember people walking in, and how they walked out was like, it felt like they were a different person. And I knew that the nervous system had something to do with it. I knew that our nervous system was the interpreter of all of our life, you know, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. and I saw something really cool happening, probably mostly physically and sometimes emotionally. I don't know that I saw their lives changing or them making different decisions, but I did see them going through quite a bit of cool healing. And so that was super inspiring. And the doctor at the time was like teaching me how to adjust and all these things that, just with him, by the way, and nobody else. And he was like, Deb, you're already a chiropractor. You're just going through the motions. And really what he meant by that is not that I could go out and start a practice because I had the know-how, but because my soul identity was already a chiropractor. It was already starting in that way, And so then I went off to chiropractic school and moved up north. And it was just one of those things that I said, I had a lot of people at the time, well-intentioned, telling me like, don't do it, like you just went through college and now like chiropractic school is so expensive. And my oldest brother had just gotten through with optometry school. And so he was just getting all his college loads and he was like, don't do it. Like, don't do it. Because if you're not completely turned on and know that no matter what, this shit's gonna work, you know what I mean? That you've got what you need, what you need at your fingertips, then it can be scary, right? And I was like, I didn't know how I was going to pay back then, but I knew I would. I knew it because I knew I was on this soul journey. And so despite the people going, I also had support, and definitely from my parents, because I never knew what they were saying internally. They were like, yes, dear, and inside I'm like, shit, there she goes again, like doing a different thing. And so, yeah, totally doing a different thing. So I went off to chiropractic school, and my commitment to myself, which had nothing to do with grades, was like, if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to invest my life and my money and all this kind of stuff in it, I'm going to like bathe in this stuff. And I really did. And I didn't do it from the standpoint of trying to get good grades. And funny enough, this is a true story, about a week before graduating chiropractic school, I found out I was the valedictorian. And like, it kind of was pissing off people that wanted that spot. I mean, I knew I was doing well, right? Because you get your test grades, but I had never been the valedictorian of anything before. So I actually invited the person who really was super close to co-valedictorian because it meant so much to her, and which is cool. And I will say though, one of the things that I've learned much later, and I just recently had a conversation with my brother and his family. He has, I have a nephew who graduated college and he's now teaching, and I have a niece that is in college, and we were just talking about life and how they manage in schoolwork and all of it. And so as I was telling this story about being valedictorian, how it was surprising, and how I shared this co-valedictorian with a friend of mine, I realized the thing that I didn't do, as much as it didn't matter that I had this title by myself, what I didn't do well is I didn't celebrate it. Like, I didn't celebrate, like, Deb, look what you did. And that's something that I really had to learn later in life, that I would just go on, especially when we're in personal growth, we're like, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? And we need to freaking pause and celebrate and remember the thing that we were doing and the reason and the why behind what we were doing in the first place, right? Yeah. So this is like, I'm 51 now, and I'm like, I'm in tears talking to my family because I just had this revelation of like, wow, I really didn't celebrate this moment of life.
Can I pause you right there real quick? Because I think, we talk about this all the time.
I can call out.
Literally, both of us, though. I mean, and I wonder, because you were an athlete.
Yeah, totally.
You were an athlete. I was an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such a, I don't know if I can completely like hone it into this box of like, it's because you're an athlete, but it's such a tendency of like, you just scored 5 goals in this game and we won this big game, but tomorrow it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And there's this element of like, bam, 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 bam. And I just even feel like, just in life, like we talk about this all the time, because it's like, I say it to her and then she'll say it to me. It's like that was huge.
Yeah.
Like, you stepped on stage in a bikini, right? Like, that was huge. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, let's go. Like, we gotta celebrate.
Yeah,
or like, I was just like, that's huge, right? But it's always like, what's the next thing?
Yeah.
And it's like, sometimes I get frustrated with myself because it's like you said, it's like tears. It's like, dude, like, can we just
Receive.
pause? Can we just pause? Like, let's look at like where you were 5 years ago. Remember when you couldn't roll out of bed and now like this?
Yeah.
You know,
You need
so
to receive.
I wanted to like
receive the
stop on
victories.
that, yeah, because that's
Totally.
like so huge.
Receive your victories, even in the smallest nuggets, for sure.
Yeah.
You know,
Well-
and I think the culture teaches us, especially American culture, teaches us to like we persevere and we go and we go and we go. So part of it, yes, being an athlete kind of exemplifies that American culture, but I think we're immersed in it.
Well, it's like New Year's resolutions and stuff too. Like people make all these New Year's resolutions and this list of things they're gonna do in 1 year, and then you get to the end of the year and you look back on that list and you're like, oh, I didn't do much on that list. Like,
Yeah.
what about all that shit that you did do that like
Yeah.
wasn't on your list?
Right.
You know?
Well, and part of that, I think, is the identity that we stack so much to deem ourselves successful enough to celebrate. So you may have done 100 million things that year, but all the things you stack that you have to do 100% in order to feel successful, you're like, I did none of it.
Yeah.
And so there's this
Oh my
weird, unconscious, like self-sabotaging bullshit that we do to ourselves, and we're not alone in it. And that's, I think, one of the things that we can think that really amplifies it is we think we're alone. We start to separate. We're like, I'm a loser, you know, and I can't get anything done. I never accomplish it.
Okay.
I was just like, this whole conversation, my whole body's doing all this weird. It was just resonating because literally, again, we just had this conversation last week where like, I mean, I made a post about it recently. I'm driving myself into the ground, and the kid's like, yeah, like, we both know you can do it. You're proving you can do it, but are you like happy? Are you taking care of yourself? It's like,
Right.
and it's like, because like in my head, and like again, this is relatable, like there's this huge list, right, that deems me successful. And
Yeah.
I like, after we had that conversation, I started asking myself like how would I operate if I actually truly believed I was worthy? Like, I think it'd be okay to rest, and I wouldn't have to be chasing like the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing.
Yeah, if rest equals loser or failure, we
Yeah.
don't rest,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And we have all these like background stories.
So it's like, what happens? Like, how would I operate differently if like I was worthy? Probably embrace like 50% of my plate. There, you know what I mean?
You always have to go back to what you value most, and some of us don't even remember what we value. You know, we lose ourselves in the moment of life, and we forget what we value. Yeah, and so like Tony Robbins has this great exercise where he lists, you know, you list your values, and then what you do is like, I feel, let's say, enormously successful whenever and then you write one thing. It could be like, I get up in the morning, you know,
Yeah.
and then you write or. You don't write and, so you write or, because what starts to happen is like you start to infiltrate like these mini successes along your day, and you start to then feed into your worthiness. Like, you know what, I think I am doing all right here,
Yeah.
you know? And so putting the or in there is kind of helpful, but really coming back to your values for sure. Yeah. Write that one down.
So cool. Well, let's keep scooting along with your stories.
Yes. Where was
Dive into
I?
the story next.
So yeah, so I graduated valedictorian, and that was cool. Of course, I didn't celebrate it, and I was like, I already had a job in a chiropractic office because that's what I did. I was already like in the next move. And one thing I just want to go back actually with you, Sean, is one thing that has like evolved through my life, even teaching docs, is like, and Dr. G can attest to this, is that like, is I will say, like, you know, when someone's at a table and they're making a contact and I'm there, you know, they know the teacher's watching, and they're always, what do we naturally do when we step up and we stretch and we do something? We think of what first?
Negative.
Yeah, we think of what's wrong. It's like, oh, that was sucky, or so we automatically go to what was wrong. And so every time, like, I could feel that energy of like, and feeling judgment, self-judgment, I'd be like, okay, so
Tell me one thing that you like about that.
yeah, one thing
One thing.
that you love.
Love. Sorry. Yes.
And so it depends on how shitty that person was feeling. I would use like if they're way off the scale.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna use love because they so can't relate to that right now. But sometimes I'd be like, so like let's just hallucinate. What did you love about that one thing?
And that's been great to like utilize in life. Period. It's like
Totally.
especially like you guys stepping up to the plate and just doing like stuff that's out of your comfort zone. A lot of time, like the first thing you think of is like, oh, that wasn't that great. And even for me, like constantly like stretching myself and feeling the growing pains of stepping into this new role at WellSpring is, you know, it's like, okay, what did I really enjoy? What did I do really amazing there? And then, okay, of course, there's always room for growth, but celebrate first what
And that's
you
the second
did
thing.
right.
The second thing is, how can you improve? So what can you celebrate? And the second thing, what can you optimize or improve? Because there's always, like, our life journey is constantly expanding and growing, right? That if we choose to engage with it.
Yeah.
So, but we must celebrate, because in the energy of celebration is the joy of being alive. And that joy is what fuels the next betterness, right?
Amen.
So anyways, I'm practicing, there I am.
Yeah.
I'm here in California. So you're asking me to like line up shit.
Holy.
So far, so good.
Well, I mean, I can honestly feel my like heart opening. So like,
Yeah.
keep going.
All right.
Sure. It's like,
Totally. Thank you. So anyways, so I was already practicing in California after I graduated and loved it, and was in a very high volume practice, and was just having, again, that pang, that calling that I've had in the past, which actually brought me to California, interestingly enough. And I was having that pang again of like, I just want to I want to run a practice or own my own practice or whatever it was. You know, I was like, okay. And not sure how, like, it's just the pang. Sometimes the choices that your heart makes go long before, like, how the hell you're going to do it. So the mind's like, well, wait for me. So anyways, I kept, like, having, like, I wanted to be in California 51% and back on the East Coast 49%, and then it would flip. You know, it would be like 49, 51. And so I was like, well, if I'm going to own a practice, wherever I'm going to be, I'm going to like hang my hat for a little bit. So I needed to make a choice. Like, am I going to be out here? And one of the things I haven't mentioned is how super close I am and was with my mom. And for whatever reason, it was her soul, not her persona, but like that was sort of like, God, I just want to like call my mom, drive for an hour and have lunch with her. Like, that was such a novel thing after being away from her for 11 years, 3,000 miles to go where you have to get on a jet plane, right? So there was that and other factors. My marriage was super challenged at the time, and there was a lot of financial challenges. And so there were a lot of reasons to, like, you know, shift what was happening. But the underlying piece was this pang to, like, you know, when I say go home, it wasn't even necessarily home on the East Coast. It was just to, like, come back to what is going to make me most joyful, and how can I, you know, feel most connected. And so made the big leap and drove cross country with my husband at the time and our dog. And about a week after getting there, I was just noticing, like, God, I just feel a little off, you know. And we had stopped in Colorado on our drive out east from California. And I remember we hung out with these friends, and we were all going to a brewery that, like, this was 1996, so it was like the microbrew was really cool out there, and it was, you know, wasn't even back here yet. And I was like, I don't know why, like, I couldn't, like, my body was like, nah, you can't drink, you didn't, you know. Every time I'd go to take a sip, it wouldn't, clueless about what was about to happen. So I was like, wow, you know, this is just weird. I haven't got a period yet. And so my mom's like, have you thought of a pregnancy test? I'm like, no. I mean, we've been together for a long time, and we're, you know, we got that shit down. And so I was like, okay, whatever, I'll take a pregnancy test. Just when you think you have it down, things go boom. What just happened? I know. This is now just 18 and over. I know.
That's all good.
So, yeah. And then there's, so obviously you guys can guess and those who know me, you know that I have a 22-year-old son. So clearly the pregnancy test was positive. And I stood in that bathroom for a good half hour at least, just staring at it. Like, if I could just turn it, you know, shake it, and it wasn't that, and for some reason, if my son is watching, you know, you are my light, you are my, like, you're just amazing. And you were the angel that was sent to me in the right moment, in the right time, even though I didn't know that at the time. And so he would really be this moving force in a time in my life where I was in a challenged marriage, a lot of love for my husband, but knew that in order to make life work, I was going to have to do all the work. And that's not a very joyful kind of experience. And I had already tried again and again to make things work. And so I was like, okay, now I'm going to buy a business. I'm pregnant. And I moved 3,000 miles away from my tribe. was like, okay. And I'm in a challenged marriage, and I just felt so alone. And so I went into the practice that I had already set up to buy, or thought I was going to buy, and I walked in, now just finding out I was pregnant. And I walked in, and everything about it from what I experienced prior 2 years ago when I was thinking of buying it, felt different. And what sucks is when you like go 3,000 miles away from everything you know, you uproot yourself, and then you go into the place that's kind of like the golden nugget that's going to help, you know, you're going to dive into, is not what we thought it was. That's like another rug pulled out from underneath me. And I was like, and Bailey was great in my belly, because he was like, I'm going to make you throw up right now. So it was really clear that this place wasn't for me. So I could have grabbed for security and said, I'm going to do this. I made a decision. I already implied that I was going to buy this from this guy who I really respected. And everything in my body, including my son, who's making me literally sick to my stomach, at that moment in that practice said no. And I had to have bravery to let go, I can't do this. And so I rushed home and I called the Chiropractic Board of Examiners, which is just basically who tests you to make sure that you can be licensed for New Hampshire, and said, hey, you know, can you take down my name? Or do you have any doctors who are selling practices? And they're like, you know, no, and we don't really do that. These other organizations can help you. And I was like, okay, great, thank you. Can you just put my name down just for the heck of it? Like, and they're like, okay. And so they put my name down, and literally, like either that day or the next day, I had a chiropractor calling me, because he called the same day and said, hey, can I have a list of all new chiropractors in New Hampshire? Wow. And she's like, oh, this woman just called today. And they give her my name. So he calls me. So I'm in my home when everything seems a little bleak, and I'm trying to be like happy about being pregnant and having, remember those chiropractic school loan bills I was telling you about? Now those things are coming in, right? And you can defer them for a little bit. And I'm on Medicaid, and I'm a doctor. Like, talk about messing with your hats and any kind of ego you could possibly have, is going in there, you have no money, you're on Medicaid, you're having a baby, and you're a doctor. You know, like, what a great way to mess with what's, you know, your mind in a great way, I think. And so, anyways, I go into the practice where this guy is selling his practice, and like immediately everything is a mess. And I had such a contrast walking into the other place that this was like, you know, Bailey must have been like dancing in there. He's like, yes. And I was like, okay, thank you. You know, and really, like, that's what's so funny. It's when you think like, oh, this could be the worst time to get pregnant. It was like, no, you need him. You need this energy, because this is going to be a tough rollout right here in this part of your life. And, you know, it proved to be just that. And so then the cool part of this story, and then when we get into Chris soon, is that I delve into WellSpring. It was called WellSpring Chiropractic Health Center at the time. And what's crazy is this, because it was a yes, like I said, but he did this thing called Network Chiropractic, and it said on his card, it said Network Chiropractor. And at the time, I still believe this, I wasn't like a huge believer in competition, even though I know I'm an athlete, but I was like, I want everybody to get along. Everybody in the world can stand to get chiropractic care, and that's really how I felt. Like, people really need to get connected to their body. So he's like, well, we all do get along, but network chiropractor means something totally different. He laid somebody on the table, and he made a contact along their spine, and their spine started doing this. And I was all, what? Yeah. Like, my science brain was going, like, was all over it. But my humanness felt like a little nervous and a little excited. And I knew, like, when I'm on that edge of a little nervous and a little excited, that, you know, I could try to devolve and pretend I didn't see it. But really, that's when life is like, go, 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 you know, like, that is that growth edge. That is that time where it's like, it comes to you and you're like, shit, I can't not see that. And so that entered me into this whole new realm of something called network chiropractic, which includes network spinal analysis, and somatorespiratory integration. You don't have to remember those. You can just look at our website. But what was really different about this, and one of the things I didn't share, is when I was practicing in California, I loved it, but I knew there was something missing and I didn't know what it was. And to kind of go back to saying that I could see so many cool things happen, but people didn't necessarily make different choices in their life. Their bodies healed really well, but they kind of go back and live the same life. And that was like, I wouldn't have been able to define it back then, but I knew that's what I was missing. And that's what network care totally is like, here, I got you on this. So I started delving into learning network because it was so significantly different than any kind of traditional chiropractic that I ultimately didn't know what I was doing. And so at the time, that doctor that I took over WellSpring in was kind of doing network in like the back. It was like the cool thing that people were doing in the back, and then he was doing like sort of the regular chiropractic. So I was able to take over the practice, but I had to merge in this whole like seminars and so I did. And I remember the first time I heard Donnie Epstein speak, who's the founder of Network Care. I think I told you guys this, that I was like, I understood about 15% maybe of what he was saying.
Yeah.
But again, like every like cell was lit up, and I was like, okay, this is another yes. This is like, I must do this. And it wasn't easy to take a practice, because I'm also really loyal. I had to take a practice. And some docs will come in and like, this is what I'm doing, and they lose like 85% of their people because they're like, this isn't what I came in for. And rightfully so. They're expecting traditional chiropractic, and now you're doing this stuff, and these waves are happening. And anyway, so I went into this practice and started to like slowly do a contact here and there, and then like do a traditional adjustment, and then and then I would do kind of like appease them. But again, it's like you can't unsee what you know. And on a soul level, I'm telling you, it was like you cannot deny this. And it sucked as a business owner. It really did. I'm not gonna lie, it sucked. And I did lose a lot of people. And I gained a lot of people too. But for many years, I tried to dabble in both. And I realized one time when I was taking care of somebody and I was making the contacts, and this breath waves start to move through them, and then I went and I adjusted them in sort of the traditional way of adjusting somebody, and I checked their what we call parameters, and everything like tightened up, even though they got like the pop and I was like, I realized at that time that to not fully commit to what I knew that I was supposed to be doing and how I was supposed to be serving people, that I wasn't being true, and I was kind of pressing the gas and the brake at the same time. And that was painful. And then I was like, oh, I'm lying to everybody. So then my courage bumped up. I was like, okay, this is what I do. So, but it was an evolution of years of doing that. I didn't just come back and go, here, now I'm doing network. And so it wasn't the easiest transition. And now, many years later, it's like, that's what I'm known for, and I've taught many docs, and I became a leader in the work. I've worked side by side with Donnie for years. Have moved on from that about 2.5, almost 3 years ago, which feels lovely too. For you also have to recognize when your life cycle is complete with something. And so, even though I'm not complete with network, I was complete with that cycle of working at Transformational Gates and teaching doctors. And although I also mentor any docs that have ever come into WellSpring. So in comes Chris in one of our seminars, and he was just one of those, I don't know if you remember this, like you came out to me, you're like, anybody who was like from the East Coast, they always went to me, he's like, I just want you to know, like I'm Chris Girdis, and I'm actually from Old Orchard Beach. I was like, dude, that's so cool. Yeah. We were like in Atlanta or something.
Yes, we're Colorado, man.
Yeah, anyways, and so little did I know, that was probably now, I don't know. Yeah,
it's 6 years ago, probably.
And I didn't know, like I wasn't like, oh, you're gonna be there, but I did remember him, and the kudos that I give to you is just stepping forward and sort of making your presence known, which is cool, because then that stuck with me when you then sent this email that was like, I want to be there, and these are all the reasons why, and everything was capitalized in the right places. It spoke to me. Like he knew what to say to me to be like, yes. And so there's so much more to my story, but I did want to say something that I remembered about the happy place thing, and with the physical therapy, does it make people happy? Is that probably about 4 years ago now, I was biking to my office from Portsmouth to Dover, and it was very, it was probably longer than that, but it was like a nirvana thing for me, because I had raised my son basically solo, and I would always have to be driving. So here I am, like actually taking my bike to work and loving every moment of it. And I lost my mom in 2009. Like I said, we were so close, still are in a different way. And I was just talking to her, and it was like the birds are chirping, everybody's happy. And And I remember looking up at the sun and talking to her, and all of a sudden I get this message and said, every time you feel joy, I feel your love. And the power in that for me, it was like she was making me accountable for being joyful.
Yeah.
Because she knows how much I love her. She knows how much I value, going back to values, like how much I want her to feel my love. So she's like, guess what? You gotta be joyful. And that's coming straight from the divine. So
That's amazing.
yeah, just wanted to share that. Yeah, and it's still practicing that, by the way.
Real quick before
Yeah.
you jump into Chris. So you said something, and the reason I did this too is because I think it was really important about you making your presence known. And so recently I've been noticing this, and like, again, I think a lot of us, like have certain systems that run on autopilot. And one that I notice in the human culture so much is just, sorry. People say, like, what are you sorry about? Taking up space? People are afraid to let their presence be known, right? And like, you say this to me all the time, like, show up, you never know. No, show up, do the thing. And I'm like, and then I do it, and like something amazing comes, and I'm like, okay, Michaela's right again, so let's check next week. But I just think that is so important in today's day and age, and even for myself and anyone that's going through like personal growth, it's like to let your presence be known. Like, just because you're letting your presence be known, it's not taking away from anyone else. Like, and like that's what we're called to do. And based on conditioning and so many other things, it's like the shrinking, the like staying small, like, oh, sorry, I'm taking up space. Like, hey, bro, we got we got a whole universe for you to take up some space. So I think that's before you jump into Chris, that was like really important. I think that's a non-good.
And of like the 26 years I've been practicing, I can't tell you, and I guess you'll know this is true, is how many people say sorry. Like if they have a moment where they start tearing up, or they're like, I'm sorry. And I used to say, do not say sorry.
Imagine if they said thank you.
Yes, thank you. And that's why I've taught people that when you are receiving some kind of compliment, you're just like, oh, thank you, it's true. Even acknowledging that it's true. But instead of saying like, don't say sorry, I just go, you know what? You don't have to say sorry. Most likely you're gonna say it again, and it's okay. Let's just take it from here. Because we are so acculturated to pull back and say, I'm sorry. Especially if you know the things that we most judge in culture. So that we're taking up space. I had another doctor who worked with me, Lauren, who followed me into the freaking bathroom because she was like, I need to work with that woman. And I got out of the stall and she was right there. She's like, I know this seems weird. We just have to. So shout out to Lauren Allard on that one.
People are always kind of laughing hysterically in the office. Like, you're on the table and like dying of laughter, and you're like, sorry. Like, what are you sorry for? Like,
that's the stuff to be contagious.
Yeah, you're just like, this is amazing. You're being joyful. Like, yeah, that's terrible. Like, we should stop laughing. It's not good. So I'm just kidding, obviously.
Take us back.
Okay. So, January 11th, 1986.
Wow.
Good thing I didn't go back to my context.
I don't remember.
It was a Monday morning at 9 a.m. I'm just playing. So let's see. Growing up, grew up in Southern Maine, Old Orchard Beach. I played football 4 years of high school, then I went into college and played 4 years of college football. At UMass, Dartmouth, it's D3, but it's like the blue collar football. There's like no scholarships. You're like literally playing just because you love the game.
Yeah.
And with that, it's for me like just noticing my growth and who I was from high school into college. It was like always kind of following the flow of what people were doing, and always kind of going with, oh yeah, let's go to college just to go to college, and let's just like all my friends are going to UMaine or no. I was like, yeah, I want to go there too. So all my friends are going there. So I applied to UMO and I didn't get accepted. I was like, now what am I gonna do? And I knew like I love the ocean. I was like, I'm gonna be a marine biologist. So I was like, all right, Southern Maine Community College, here I come. First semester in, fail chemistry miserably. I'm like, all right. So yeah, I don't think this is gonna work. So myself was like, you know what? Let me just go into marketing and sales and just climb the corporate ladder and just have a living. And like that was my mindset going through college. So my second semester at SMCC, I just did basic classes, and then I got accepted to UMass Dartmouth, and I was like, cool, I get to get out of the state of Maine and meet some new people. So, you know, playing football and doing this and just going with the flow and, you know, taking really good care of my body on the weekends. Just kidding. But like, you know, lifting and partying and you know, beating myself up physically. Just again, like just always going with the flow of what people were doing, never really communicating what I wanted, who I was, and let alone I didn't really have an idea of what I wanted. Oof. Yeah. So, you know, towards the end of school, I ended up being in a relationship with this girl. She was going to be going to Atlanta, Georgia to go to chiropractic school. So I was like, you know what, like, get me out of New England. Like, I'm ready to go to Southeast, like, just to do something different and new. So I relocated to Atlanta. I got a job at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, the largest newspaper in the Southeast, selling newspaper advertising. Yeah, that was, yeah. So, yeah, it was, didn't meet any sales goals ever. It was great. So like a year later, they're like, you know, we love you, you're a great guy, and like, you're not hitting your goals in sales. Like, you're only as good as your last month, and I didn't ever have like a great month. So they're like, all right, well, you know, we're gonna let you go. And that was like during the time of like 2009, 2010, when like the economy was rough, there was a lot of unemployment. So, you know, I was unemployed for like 6 months, and I was like, oh, like I'm applying for jobs, and then I'm going to like these chiropractic talks and seminars with my girlfriend at the time. I was like, wow, this stuff's like really cool. Like it just made so much sense, and it actually was almost it was my first glimpse into like spirituality of like what that really was. I never had any experience growing up. I would go, my dad's side of the family is Greek Orthodox, and my mom's side's Catholic, but I would go to like Orthodox Easter church service once a year maybe, and that was about it. So other than that, it wasn't like shut down my throat. So with chiropractic, it was like, wow, like, yeah, like the body has the natural healing capacity to heal itself. And like life flows from above, down, inside out, allowing for your body to basically just do its own thing. You know, like the universe sometimes the way you want to be communicates with you through your nervous system. And if there's like distortion or a disconnection in your nervous system, that message is going to get distorted and not show up as it should for yourself. So it's all about being kind of like your nervous system is the way you express life. It's like the universe is communicating through you. If you have a clear nervous system, it's going to be like your soul self, your soul truth of how you express who you are on this planet at this time. So for me, I was like, damn, like that's some deep shit. And I was like, I thought chiropractic was like, you know, popping bones and like helping people feel better. And like, I was like, okay, like I can dig this. So I'm applying for jobs, and then I was like, you know what, I want to apply to chiropractic school because I'm like really enjoying this. So probably like the same week, I got a job offer and I got accepted to chiropractic school. And I was like, I was like, so of course I took the job because that's safe. Yeah. And like a month or two in, I'm like, this sucks. I still hate this like so much. So I ended up putting in my notice and jumping in the journey to chiropractic school, which is exciting. First quarter in the prereqs, I had a marketing degree, so I had like a ton of like prerequisites I had to do before I actually got into the program. First quarter, relationship was already on the way out, but it officially ended my first quarter in school. And then I was like, wait, is this really what I want to do with my life? Like, did I just do this for this person? Like, so it was really like a check-in point. Probably the first time I've ever like had a check-in point for myself of like, is this really what you want? And it was like, no, like I really love this stuff. This stuff like really speaks true to me. It's like one, I get to help people, but like on a totally different level, which was huge. So at that time, I was also a very hefty dude. I weighed like 275 pounds, like really unhealthy, just like miserable with just how I was feeling in life in general. And like the relationship ended, and I was like, oh, like dude, you're like out of shape, you're fat, like you need to get your life together. Talking really great to myself, and of course, and like, and I feel like this is what we do in society. Period. Is like we always need like a big moment to have like the cascade to make a change, instead of listening to yourself like 2-3 years ago in the past. You're like, hey, like. You know, you sure you want to do this? Like, is this like really your path? Is this, you know, kind of listening to yourself? And for me, I found like I took that big moment to make the change myself. And that's kind of when I ran into network spinal analysis, network spinal, whatever. And I was like, whoa, again, it was like another level of chiropractic in the sense of like awareness of your body. And it really helped me, like, as Deb talked about before, is like lifting that firefly, allowing for the natural healing capacity of your body, and then also allowing for your body to do the normal things it does, heartbeat, digestion, metabolism, all these things. And I know that really helped me just like lose weight that much quicker. And of course, eating right and working out and moving my body. But it was really like a time where I was like, oh, like tuning into my body and really what it wanted and what it needed to get me to a better, healthier place. Of course, physically, but also it showed up like tenfold in other aspects of my life, which is huge. So just going through chiropractic school, as Deb's, yeah, so yeah, I was like 275, and then I like got down to like 185, yeah, I was.
That's like congratulations.
Yeah, I was a big boy.
It feels like it was for the right reasons too. You
Totally.
weren't losing weight, you were becoming more alive, and you were
Yeah.
connecting with yourself.
Absolutely.
For the right reasons. For the
Well, it
right
almost seems
reasons.
symbolic, right? Because I know you for myself, like I'm the heaviest I've ever been this morning too. That was on purpose, but it felt like really heavy because I now know that there was more than just weight there.
Right.
You know, there was all this other energetic stuff, and I think like for you, it sounds like a very symbolic release of like weight, but also like that energy and like crap and trauma and whatever else is there.
Shedding,
And it's
when no one
cool,
else
like,
did.
I remember, like, Brian was like, he's like, you know, like, that was, like, all the weight that people add onto their body, it's like their potential of who they are, who they know they can be, and, like, and how they show up in their life. There's so much potential, like, physically, potential matter that's, like, you're just adding to your body because you know how high your potential is. You know, like, what you can really do and how you can show up in your life. And, like, when you're not doing it, it's painful, and it's gonna, like, get stored somewhere. It's gonna store in your body physically. I was like, damn, like that was like, holy cow, that really makes a ton of sense. Just being in a place of not knowing who I was and what I wanted to do and how I wanted to show up in my life, and then not doing it, and that in itself was really painful to like cascading into like a totally different direction, different profession, new life, and be like, oh, like this feels so good. I feel energized with what I'm doing. Luckily for me,
Congratulations on that.
thank you. I didn't really celebrate that.
That's awesome. Incredible.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, let's just like breathe that in for a minute.
So, yeah, so I got, luckily for me, like I found network in school like right away. And I've been learning it probably like third quarter into school, and just really allowed for me to like dive in. And like, I didn't necessarily notice, I wasn't feeling a whole lot in the beginning of care. I was just, I love what the hell they were telling me. I was like, this stuff is legit. Like this person's like, they're barely touching me. And I get it, but I don't get it. And then I went out, there was like a point where I'm like, you know, if I don't have like these big changes or these feelings I see people are having, like I'm done. Like I can feel it in my, I can't feel it in my body. I get it up here, but I'm just not feeling it. So I went to Colorado and it's like, this is it. And then obviously I'm still here. It was like big heart opening, like expression,
You went
and
to Colorado, you went to a gate.
it was not a gate. It was like a level 2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You went to
Seminar.
Okay.
Yeah, I got in training just like, when I was like falling on the table, and like that's not like a normal thing. It's just like the build up to that
And
point.
entrainment is basically a network session, or what you might call chiropractic adjustment, but it's called entrainment.
So I got out of school and opened up shop in Raleigh, North Carolina, and failed. And there was a point there, I learned a lot from that experience, no doubt, but there was like the point of like, all right, I'm out of school, I got student loans, like I gotta work. So I ended up working at an office in Raleigh. It was like PI, car accidents. I was like, well, the money's great, like cool, I'm paying my bills, but like after my first year, I was like, damn, this is kind of like soul sucking. This is not my passion. This is not what I've been trained for throughout school, out of school until now. And like, what do you like? There was like this building and building and building. I'm like, again, like, what are you doing? And then like, finally, like, I'm like, if I don't listen to myself now, I don't want it to be like another big event that has to occur for me to make a change. And that was probably like the first time in a long time. And I was like, you know what? I've been wanting to move back to New England for so long. Like I made that decision. There was a relationship that had ended. And then Deb's opportunity had just magically appeared. And, you know, it's amazing when you're in alignment with what you want and what you want to do and the ease of how it shows up for you. And like, life doesn't have to be hard. Like life can be easy when you're on the path and you're listening to yourself and what you want to do. So in September, got my behind up to WellSpring, New Hampshire, hopped into WellSpring, and it's been quite the journey around there.
Yeah.
That is so amazing.
So cool.
Yeah.
I love what you said, the last thing you said, because I even for myself have been experiencing this lately of like, when you're in alignment, like, I never ever would have believed this, but things just start coming to you.
Yeah.
I don't have to go out and hunt them.
Yeah.
And like for so much of my life, I would love this like element of like the hunt, you know?
Hunt.
Like, I mean,
It's gonna be hard.
I grew up, my father was like very like male dominated, like let's go on and hunt, like force this with my will, and like that was my example. And my dad was like a beast, and like that was to me that was so cool. I loved it. Like I always loved talking about my dad as like just being an animal, and so like I've adopted that, but like recently just like. Granted, I still do that too, not like in
So
life.
that part doesn't have to go away.
No, it doesn't. Like
This
that's
doesn't
still
have to be
there,
your
but like it
character.
doesn't have to be the only character. And like now I'm seeing this like receiving, like, oh wait, that I didn't do anything. That just like that kind of just asked and showed up. And I think that's so important because I know it's a shift for me. And I'm sure your experience that like other people, like that's important to understand that is available.
Yeah, totally. Like the three things I like to say about the art and practice of connection of our journey is first, like remember that life is epic by nature. It's an epic saga. It's like with an epic movie and saga, there are all the pieces. There are the heartbreaks. There's the villain. There's the hero. There's the extras in the way that don't seem like they matter. The sorry people, and all of those parts are going to present themselves to you at different moments. And know that when you remember it's epic by nature, the second thing you can do is what you were saying, is align with it. Because when you can align with it, really what you're doing is you're just acknowledging what is in that moment, no matter how hard or blissful. Or acknowledging can also be the celebration piece, right? The receiving. And it can also be like, wow, I feel really lost right now. It can be the range of aligning with what is presenting itself in that moment. And when we do, it gets easier. And you can extract the nugget of wisdom. And so, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, part of aligning with it is doing all the things that can help connect your body, because this is where our life is lived, right? Not just here, but all of it. And then the third thing is don't ever try to do it alone. And like you were saying, like, Michaela was right on that one. We need to be able to find people that also remember the epic nature of life and that in all its ranges, that are accountable for themselves and will absolutely, in the most loving way, like know what you want to be accountable for, and they will hold you to it. And those are the three things that I think are super important elements in our journey of connecting. And growing.
Such a great reminder, like especially the part of just like you're not doing it, you don't have to do it by yourself. You're not alone, and like
You can.
It's so easy to
like don't do it alone.
push harder, faster, stronger, and then you're like
hallucination
have to
anyway,
do it by myself. Yeah.
You know what's? I feel like I'm getting like scolded here secretly, like no one knows it, but yeah, that's right. But I just think it's like one of those things like you can know I just like the recognition of cognitively knowing something versus like feeling it.
Yes.
Because I've known that concept for 5 years.
Yeah.
It doesn't make it any easier to stop this like repeated pattern of like, no, head down, like go through it. And that's like, but if you can take a moment to like slow down and breathe into that and see that you're doing it, it's so important to do that.
Well, we are neurologically wired for our patterns of stress, right? So our mind will go, I want to quit smoking. I want to quit smoking. And there's something between our mind and our finger that's, saying, calling bullshit, like this serves you in some way. And so when we can lift those neurological sort of patterns that keep us stuck and keep us sort of reproducing the same behaviors, life gets a lot more epic and easier to align with. So.
Something that I want to go back to about Chris's story that I just think is so interesting, and like maybe it's just the way you talk about your story, but I feel like is there something in my hearing?
Is that?
It's like in the corner of my eye.
You're having a good
The epic movie's happening right now.
You're having
I thought it was moving.
We're here in makeup. Is it the creature? Is the creature back?
actually, there's a lot of multidimensional stuff happening.
What's
so
happening?
That's what happens.
Anyway,
Together.
we're back. We're back. Sorry. Okay. Woo. All right. But and it might just be the way you kind of like talk about your story and your life, but I feel like you just continuously been handed these like quote unquote failures, like even just like from you start with like college or like didn't get into the school everyone else was going to, got fired from my job, like just and it might just be how you share your story, but and even with the weight thing, and like I'm curious too, like do you think? Because I kind of see it this way as like when you gain a lot of weight, it's kind of like the universe or whoever it is like forcing you to take up space, and like you're maybe just not doing like you need to be doing that in a different way.
Right.
I don't know if that resonates with you at all,
Yeah.
but I guess my like question really is after like what feels different now, like now that you're like kind of back here in New England and like overcoming quote unquote these.
Yeah. It's like continuing the journey of like tuning in with myself and what that looks like, and like continue to practice the things that I know. Like I feel like I'm home and it's great and it's beautiful, and like I got friends back home, and we just found out one of my best friends they're pregnant. And I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. This is part of why I want to be here. And I also think there's like something bigger from why I'm here, and it's just kind of like allowing for myself to tune in and like go on a Route 1A and ride, just go on the coast and just like chill and then look out the horizon to like really, it's like practicing what I preach. I think more than anything is like I know I should be doing all these things and like communicating better, and like communication's been like a realm of like haven't been amazing at, but like really been practicing it because it's been really, I know.
Can I say something?
Yes.
I think you rock at it. Yeah. And I think that what we talked about the other day is like like you're actually getting the things that you've wanted, and there's still that story that is disintegrating that goes, I actually deserve this. So, and what did I say the answer was?
Yes.
Yes.
Don't shrink, get bigger, get bigger. No shrinking.
No.
That's probably not gonna
Be proud of
That's not gonna be recording. Sorry.
Yeah, and she's absolutely right. Like it's like kind of continue to. It's like tough. It's not tough.
Because it's like the way I like see your story, the way you tell it, it's like the universe keeps like banging you over the head with like a pot,
Right.
and you're like, I'm doing like you're not going the right way.
And it's finally feeling like that. It's not.
Yeah.
And that's which is really cool. And I think with that, of course, is like being on your journey of like actually listening to yourself. And for me, it's like this has been the journey of like, well, we just do this because everyone else is doing it, or
But you shifted that trajectory too.
I sure did. Yeah, definitely.
I just think so. As a man, so I want to.
Oh, there is a
right there.
Oh, okay. Wow. That's hilarious.
Thank you.
Wow. That's hilarious.
That's
The
all
creature
I literally
speaks.
thought I was doing
Alright, so not because now there's no creature. But what I wanted to tap into was because I've seen you get a little choked up in this thing, and I think that's so important. That's so okay, and thank you for doing that.
Totally.
And I want to make this about men right now, real quick. I'm going to take a moment to do this because it is so much of your story resonates with mine. Of this, like, and I think what you said is the nail on the head. Is like the universe just starts with like flicking you in the shoulder, and like kicks you in the leg, and then it's like, okay, that's not working. How about punching your gut? No, I still got this. And you keep going, and then it just eventually like kicks the crap out of you, and you're like, okay, I can't do this anymore. But I mean, I also want to talk about again the way you talk about your story is very similar to how I talk about my story in the past. Of like, oh, it's a failure, it's a failure, it's a failure. Well, the cool part about this is I want to bring Rocky into this. Like I watched Creativity the other day, and got me all hyped up. And dude, it's like Ivan Drago just knocked your ass down, and you're like, okay, I'm Rocky. Like here we go. I can't see out of my eyes, but I'm getting up. And I mean, I think there's so much power to that. Like again, the way we talk about ourselves versus like what's the actual truth is like you just kept getting back up. And like you can always laugh about it now. You can laugh about it now. like, because you're beyond it, but it's
Right.
like, yeah, like, didn't get into that college, and then I didn't do well at this job, and then I didn't do this, and I didn't do this, and it's just like this list of didn'ts, but it all like guided you to here, man.
Totally.
Like, you're still standing, you're breathing,
Absolutely.
you can like tear up on camera as a man, like, fuck yeah. You know, that stuff's important. And I mean, there's just so many, again, this is about men right now, like, there's so many other men that can't do that. And I know for me, it's like, I was held in chains for so long because I felt like I had to be this like hunter, head down, forward, no emotion, who gives a crap what I want? Because that was my example in my life. And like, God bless my dad. Yeah, I saw my dad, I literally seen my dad cry once in my life,
Yeah.
once. And that was when his brother died.
Yeah, that's probably why.
You know what I mean?
No.
And that was not okay, you know, and there's so much power to that.
This man is one of the most real, authentic, heart expressing, like emotional men. And I was going to share the same thing, and especially being a woman and being able to receive that and being in like this working relationship and friendship. It's really beautiful to watch. And I think that as a woman, when we can receive the glory of and be open, we also ignite men's hearts, and their hearts are connected to their soul and their purpose. And so I think, you know, you're also just putting yourself, like you chose to put yourself in this like, you know, group of women who are willing to be like, you're amazing. And so, I mean, we could be getting shit done at our meetings, and he can hit a moment of thread, and he will be like tearing up right there as we're getting shit done, but be authentic with his emotion. In fact, that was holding it back for you, actually. Like, it's beautiful. And as a woman, it's amazing to watch.
Well, and it's a two-way street too, because I think as women too, like we are oftentimes brought up to believe that men have to be strong. Also.
Absolutely.
So as a woman, like holding space for a man to like truly show their emotions, I think is even just as.
Oh my God, I want to talk on that because this is what I want to say is like, I've been blessed. I mean, again, I made another post about this the other day about like the amazing like women that have just entered my life. Like, it is one of my biggest blessings because they have freely given me so much. And one of those things is like safe space to cry or share emotion, whatever it may be. And all it is space to just be, as you talk about in this epic journey, whatever character is in that moment. Right now it's a blubbering little boy crying, even though I'm in third year of my body. But that is just receiving that and like having that space has given me so much more strength. It's like, oh my God, you gave me that. I have so much more power to move forward now. And like, I will die for you kind of thing. Like, I honestly truly believe that about myself is like, it has given me so much more strength and so much more fire and passion to be able to like allow that freedom.
Better out than in, you know, like we talk about to the office, like emotion is energy in motion. You have that wide range of expression of emotion, whether it's like outrage to like joy to whatever it is, just a range of emotion. In society, it's like, you're happy or you're okay, and that's cool. Like outside of that, it's like, like, are you like, I don't know what I want to talk to you, I want to go there, and then you start apologizing. And like energy in motion is when you can actually express that emotion. You're like expressing this. It's allowing for that energy to move forward, to push you forward into what you want to do, give you that energy to move ahead and do what you want to do. And when you notice when people make the biggest changes in their life, it's like sometimes, because I was saying before, like a big life event that just caused you like that cascade to like move forward is like that big event. There was probably a lot of pain or a lot of emotion that was expressed during that time period, which is like, all right, enough of this. Like, I'm done. Like, I'm going to move forward and do my own thing. That's like that emotion that's building and building and building, and to really just be able to express it on a more regular basis when it's present and current for yourself. It's going to give you the energy to like be on fire, be soulful, be on target, be what you want to do.
When you can embody the range of emotion, the hits are not as strong because you're actually navigating and dancing with what the emotion is actually telling you. You're able to make those course corrections. And I think to go back to men, I just want to honor, I've worked with so many men over the years, and like as a culture, you know, men are so afraid of their rage. And because it's like, if we start to feel emotion, we're going to fucking kill everything and everyone, right?
Literally.
So it's scary. And so when we can, as men, you can embody fuller range of emotion on a regular day, and like not just the extreme from like ecstasy to rage, you know, and it's a really powerful place to sit as a man, and especially as a man as a leader. So, you know, being able to tear up on a podcast is just one piece of it, but it's an essential piece.
But now it's not rage 2 weeks from now.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Because you just let that
Yeah,
go.
I was able to
And
be with it.
and that's it too, letting go, surrender.
Yeah.
Like surrender to it. And I think we talked about last week with Kadi, like the chameleon suit. I think something that's become so invaluable to me, and it's kind of like a rule I've made myself, is like I will no longer allow myself to be in the presence of someone where I have to wear my chameleon suit, and I can't express that. And I find that, because I've been asked this recently, like just in my experience, again, this is my experience, I'm owning this, is that happens more with men, where like it's a chameleon suit of this, exactly what we've talked about, and I know you're gonna know what I'm talking about being a football player. It's like you're in a locker room, like, oh, I'm a tough guy, it's tough girls, like Tom Brady, and it's like, yeah, that's cool for like 5 seconds, but like there is so much more to life, and it's like I feel caged in that space, and it's so uncomfortable because it's like, well, yeah, that's cool too. Like, yeah, I can run someone over on a football field, but like I also like to cry and like look at the beautiful flowers and smell beautiful smells of women and talk to women and like all this stuff, because that's me too. And
holding that in just
sucks.
amplifies the rage internally, and it also makes it grow externally. So it will keep coming to you to try to express, right? Because as we repress it and reroute it, it starts to bubble up in it like a Tupperware, you know, cover pops up in the world. So it
That's a good
inadvertently,
example.
I make this shit up as I go.
Yeah,
As I go.
yeah,
Before I was like, can you
first.
record that?
It's like dead air first. No, it's not.
So then we inadvertently are affecting the world, even when we think we're not doing anything and we're like keeping it safe. We're actually like amplifying.
It's so. I'm so glad you said that, because in my head I visualize like we can live our lives like this. Like we can be really high, and then we can be really low. We can be really angry, and then we can be really depressed, or we can like slowly let out those emotions and live more of like a.
It's the Om. It's the sine wave.
Yeah.
That is the universal language that everything can entrain to. That everything can, you know, go in. So if you can put all that and put it into that, what you're saying, it's like it can process it.
Well, the way you react to things too, like I feel like that's like we're always gonna have these like things that come up in our lives that are difficult to deal with.
Yeah.
It's part of it, right? We're
Journey,
always gonna hit these failures, or we're always gonna hit these like hard times, but it's how you react to them, right?
wow, you just said something that I like. It kind of delves into like a theory I have, and I want to like tap into mental illness here about. So I was once diagnosed bipolar at one point, and the experience of bipolar is exactly what you just said. It's these extreme like ecstasy highs and these like super emotional lows. For some people it's rage. For me it was lows, and it was this absolute like tallest roller coaster in the world kind of experience. And as I learned to express more of the ranges of emotions where it wasn't these extremes, like it has become more. That's not to say I don't delve into those still, but like, because it's an unraveling process. But I mean, even for me, like that whole idea of mental illness really lies in like this emotional piece, and really learning to express that, because a lot of times in mental illness there's so much like trauma that people don't want to face, and so it expresses like this because they don't know how to go in between.
And you know, I have to say, doing what we do, and I've been so humbled and honored to work with people that, you know, literally said I was going to commit suicide, or was and didn't, and chose to live life because they can start to process the in between, and also that aren't taking all the drugs that they were, just to try to minimize those kinds of highs and lows. So it's a humbling journey, and it's an honoring journey to go on with people, to watch them come to life and be able to feel their range of life. It never gets less. You know, I tell people like it never gets less. Like, yeah, like, and you know, it's like I can imagine seeing a baby be born must be freaking amazing. Like it's that. Like I feel like we get to see people be born or wake up again and again and again, and that there really is no ceiling to that. You know, that richness of the human experience, and to be able to be and dance with that and create these embodied strategies that allow people do that is pretty remarkable.
I heard something recently that talked about the fear of death, right? Like a lot of us have this fear of death, but like if you're fully experiencing life, your ego is constantly dying.
Totally.
Oh, yeah.
You
Yeah,
know?
absolutely.
And
Cycles of life.
approach that from that way of like, I think when all this resistance comes up, it's just like the old me is trying to die, bro. Just like let it go.
Mm.
Yeah.
Off of that, can you kind of dive into and tell everybody just a little bit more specifically about what it is you do at WellSpring, like what that kind of really looks like?
All right, I'll lay down on the table.
That's the best way. It's like, boom, right? Letting it show us. Talking about letting it go. Well, as I said in the beginning, less than an hour ago, right?
Yes. Something like that. So when we first met them, Sean was like, we have about an hour and a half. And I was like, 45 minutes to an hour. It's like, we'll be here.
So thank you all for that you're tuning in still, and it's okay if you just got part of it, you know. So we're just grateful to be here. So what we do at WellSpring, you know, really it is about kind of, you know, knowing that one of the things that everyone will say, or most people will say, is that they feel like they've come home, because that we acknowledge and receive the epic range of life. So someone can come in grumpy as hell, someone can come in, you know, suffering. I have people that have come in and they just lost someone close to them, and they want to get right here so that they can, you know, get right out there, whatever get right means. And so we work with, in doing that, so people, like I said, they come for all different reasons. So there could be something on a chronic level, whether it's like gluten intolerance or IBS or a lot of digestive that, you know, everyone can basically relate to metabolism, like you were saying, people drop weight a lot just without trying. And, you know, all the sort of regular overwhelm, exhaustion, depression, you know, stress, and a bit confusion, and ability to kind of, you know, move forward in our personal growth, and just really wanting to deepen in heart connection and relating and intimacy. So, and sometimes the intimacy starts with your intimacy of our own body. And so one of the things that I often say that Chris knows is us, you know, ask people like, well, what if you came in here and you said, like, what if your body was your hero? You know, what if you started there and knew that there are miracles happening every day? And so with that foundation and availability and understanding that the nervous system is this magical transducer of life that interprets all of life and consciousness, and like I said, on a physical, emotional, and mental and heart connection, that we utilize the nervous system in our awareness of all of those ranges of life, and connect to the part of the spine that the higher brain, which is not the reptilian brain, is the part that is always active in us. Meaning, when we're feeling like that switch is always on in fight or flight, which is really a chronic epidemic in our modern day world, because we have so many things we're trying to process, that we go into this weird form, mutated form of fight or flight. And so the first thing that we do is we make contacts along the spine in which are not connected to fight or flight. So all of a sudden it wakes up your higher brain, your higher brain goes, oh my God, what's going on here? And it starts to, the breath rhythm starts to come back, and a breath wave moves to the spine, and sort of this organic unwinding, unfurling, or adjusting, readjusting assessment happens, and the body starts to unwind tension that it was holding. So the first thing people experience is just a lot of physical change, and it can be structural change as well. I think people, because we don't do traditional adjusting per se, there are times we do that, but it's a whole different reasoning why, that people think, like, can structural changes happen? And the answer is absolutely yes. In fact, when we're working with the actual source of the nervous system and the brain's capacity to connect with our body, all the aspects can change, you know, and that our structure, that every part of our body has a relationship to life. You know, our structure has to do with how supported we feel. Our structure has to do with how we posture in the world. You know, our muscles have to do with our emotions. How flexible, how adaptable are we? Our immune system is part of our adaptability, and how we, you know, ward off or flex with, you know, all the things out there in the world, not just viruses and bacteria, but all of it, right? It's constantly protecting us in that way and flexing. And so we know that those parts of the physiology have to do with that. And then we know that our spinal cord, which is just an extension of our brain, is like the back of our mind. Donnie Epstein, we've got epic life going on right there.
There's so many noises.
Stop! Talking about the frequency, that's this.
Yeah. That was
Donnie Epstein, who's the founder of Network Care, I remember him saying years ago, it's like, all the shit that we don't want to think about, we throw in the back of our spine. So it's like the back of our mind. So it's like, he said, like, if your spine was in the front, you would not, you'd look down and you'd go, oh my God, I'm going to take care of this shit. But it's so easy. We don't think of our spine as our lifeline. And yet it is. We know it, but we don't treat it like it. And so if we were raised to understand how profound that the brain and spinal cord are to our existence and our ability to flex and flux and flow in life, we would treat it differently. We would just say, hey, I have a back pain and my life is great. There is a direct relationship. I can't tell you, like, we don't get it as much now because people know what we do. But like people are like, I got this and everything else is great, So when you sit down with us, we go through a whole profile that really, our job is kind of seeing like what are the patterns that show up that we've all talked about in our life today, right? That show up again and again and again. And how does that relate to our nervous system and the patterns that are showing up again and again and again? And then the second piece that we then do as the person starts lifting their fight or flight and unwinding their tension, there's another wave called the somatopsychic wave that starts to be birthed. And really what's happening is there's this free energy that starts to defragment all the fragmentation of these behaviors that we have and actions that we take again and again and again. And this wave is being studied by 8 universities right now because of its impact. Basically, you have your whole sympathetic nervous system in here, and this wave is getting created because there's less and less tension or hanging on to the stories around the spine, which is the back of the mind. So there's this like loosening the grip of the stories, and you'll see people on the table going, whoa, and if you watch our video, you can see there are people like these waves are moving and they're unwinding, and everybody will always go, wow, that sounds, you were talking about being in concept, like people will go, that sounds so cool, that sounds so rad, that's like badass, and then they like watch it and they're like, what is that? So there's a gap sometimes between their concept and going, wow, this is what our physiology is truly capable of. And these waves, again, the scientists are studying it, but we don't have a story for it. Network can get, I can't tell you how many people think I'm a voodoo doctor. And I was like, cool, I'll just embrace that too. Whatever it is, if we can serve you, whatever you need to call it, but it is very scientifically studied as well. And so this second wave that gets birthed is pretty powerful because once you have the stability of having less of that fragmentation from fight or flight and all of the sort of physicality and emotionality that gets blocked from that, you start to be able to see brighter and bigger of what like the potential. And so who you are becoming. And remember a long time ago I said in chiropractic, and this, I love chiropractic, but I did notice that people's lives, they weren't making different choices per se. They had a lot of shoulds. And we have a lot of shoulds in life. I should do this, I should eat right, I should. And I had a teacher once said, well, if you should too much, you're going to should all over yourself. So like the should started to lift in network care in the second wave. And the way that the analogy that I've given is like if you're looking out one window and that's like the view of your life. And everything you see is through that window. And you see a raging river, which is cool because we have water here. You see a raging river, and you see like right at the end of that pane of that window, you see like a 2-year-old, like a foot away from the raging river. What do you actually do? Real question. Cool. Call somebody? Thank you. I need that. You did yourself.
Well, you run down the stairs insanely fast.
You would have to call somebody to be faster.
Well, or you probably put up the window and scream, or do something, or you run. I'd probably run too.
I'd be like, okay, yell.
So we would take action in different ways.
Right.
But we would take action, correct?
Yes.
Totally. And so when this wave starts moving in your spine, there's a suspension of the viewpoint that your nervous nervous system has had and only looking out that one window. It's like blowing out the whole wall, and now you see this, it's the same landscape, but you see more of it. And so you see the raging river, you see the 2-year-old, and now you see the mom a foot away. Do you respond completely different to the same landscape? And that's what starts happening to people in network care, is they start responding differently to the same landscape of their life, and they start changing how they relate to it.
So I want to actually talk about this from being a customer, client, whatever you want to call me. So I did what, 7 in training, 6 in training, something like that. And not only did I have a blow open like crying experience, not on the table, but I actually remember one night at like midnight, 12:30, I was like full of energy and decided to pull up a photo album my mom made for me for my birthday 2 years ago. And I mean, literally bawled my eyes out, boogers coming out like for like 40 minutes straight. I couldn't even stop it. I didn't even try it. So that happened. And I started to make different choices. I started to step into this bigger presence, this bigger energy, the thing that lit me up. And I've just seen that happen in like some of the small changes in just like my speaking business and us doing this and other choices I'm making in my life. But gonna be honest, call myself out, I haven't gone in a couple months. And like you talk about that, loosening the grip.
Yeah.
I have felt the grip like clinging on tightly and like trying to like tighten me back in, and I felt that. And I laughed hysterically because my lower back has been hurting. And I can't be like, oh yeah, life's great and smooth and fine. Like, it's not. So there's like some cohesion there, and I mean, I'm actually like super inspired to like go back and see you guys. So we'll talk after the show, but there is a lot of value to what you guys are doing, and like just feeling that and just watching the changes within my own self, and how it was only like a very, very small dosage of what you guys do. You know? So
yeah,
I mean, that
totally work with people
has a
through a year or
Yeah,
more.
yeah,
I mean,
of course.
and they utilize it. Like there's actual, and we were talking about this the other day, that there are actually like what we call emerging new properties happening in your nervous system that you own. So it's like shifting the hard drive of your computer into a better processor. And so like there's people that I've seen that moved away for 4 years and didn't get care anywhere else and came back. And I remember saying this with this person. I was like, check this out. And we made a contact, and it was like, boom. Like all of a sudden, all of that awareness was there. It wasn't like starting over again. So the part about network care that I love is it's super empowering to your own nervous system and your own nervous system's capacity to navigate life. And it does stay with you. And the other part of it is that it is also a learning. So you can get like even one entrainment. I've had people go, oh my God, you entrained me like a student at some seminar. You entrained me 10 years ago and I made this huge trajectory change. And I'm like, really? You know, so we do have these big moments, but the power really, the sustainability comes in the actual emergence of the properties that happen in your nervous system that you can live with and continue to grow with. And so, like I said, even one entrainment can be super powerful, but what people are learning in the study that they did with a little under 3,000 people, you know, they took people that had these waves in their spine, they took people that were doing all the right things, and measured all the ranges of wellness, even life enjoyment, and but all the physical stuff too. And the people that did all the right things, they increased like 0.2, so statistically a little bit. And then all the people that were getting these waves in their spine, it doubled, so 0.4. But the cool part of this is about the sustainability is they follow these people, and as they continue to refine this experience, they started to make all the right decisions for them. So we want to get the next diet, we want to get like whatever, we want to do the right thing, but what is the right thing for our rhythm, for our pulse, and what our body needs? And we have so much lost our feedback of knowing what our body, our life, our heart really need, that's what starts to change is the internal feedback process gets much more clear. And so people will start doing the things that either they left behind, or they'll go like, for me, I was just like, I don't want to eat meat anymore. I didn't want to become a vegetarian because I needed to become, it was like I was literally forcing myself to eat meat when everything in my body said, don't eat meat. And so choices and changes that I've made in my life became easier because my body became more clear to me and I got more intimate with it. So that's part of what we see happen.
I have a question. So it's kind of like in a way coming back to like who you are really, like your most like
pure self.
Pure,
Pure
yeah.
self.
So like through our lives, we're kind of like putting up all these different like masks and barriers and resistance to like that pure version of ourselves. So like in an ideal world, how do we not even, this is just kind of like a deep question, but like how do we not, like what's the best thing that we can do from like a young age or as a parent not to like put up all that shit that gets in the way?
Totally. Well, I think it goes back to the sort of three things. Acknowledge that there's a range of life that's epic, and like as a parent, I can share that one of the things I felt owning my own business, being a single mom, and being the only doc in my business, and also the manager and all the, all the hats, was that I always felt like, even unconsciously, a little guilty of not like being there for Bailey because I was making a living, right? And so, so being able, I remember I would be like, okay, I need this whole day with him, and I would plan like being with him. But what was happening, I was disconnecting my presence. And so I was like, okay, if I have a whole day with him, then I'm a good mom. And I realized as I started receiving care myself during this process, it was like, I'd rather have like 10 minutes with my son that is present, that I'm hearing him, I'm feeling him, I'm being with him. And so I think it does absolutely start with the parent. And being able to be connected to themselves and have the courage to acknowledge the range that they're feeling. Like I was just sharing this with somebody the other day that like, I think my son was maybe 7, and I had a moment where like things were building up and I was like, oh, and I just like had this epic scream. And I remember, and here's a kid who's been getting network care since he was a baby. He looks up at me and he's like, it was like a good scream. It was not a baby scream. He looks up and goes, do you feel better? And I was like, why, yes, I do. Because his baseline already knew. Like, I was teaching somebody somatorespiratory integration, and I had 2 people at my house 10 years ago. He was probably around the same age. And part of this exercise, there were 12 of them, you make a sound, and you're making like this resolution sound that, that connects to, did I tell you the story? Yeah. And I don't even think he's paying attention. He's going upstairs, he's going to the dining room. And this woman is trying to help this woman like get connected to that tone, that moment of resolution. And all of a sudden you hear she's trying, there's no sound coming out. And all of a sudden he's like hopping around, because he would like hop all around. He's like, just make the damn noise. He never said damn before. Like he literally felt it in his body. Yeah. So part of, I think, knowing that you are going to have, everyone is going to have their journey that I think started long before you came into the world. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so it's talk about like pressure as a healer. I'm raising my son, so I'm like, he should be free and clear of everything, right? And it's like, no, he has his journey. And what my job is to be as present with myself and then with him as possible, and be as authentic and not, and to be able to assess when is the right time to come forward and when can we just, so his ability to have the range of feeling happened at a young age. Like I remember him like stubbing his toe really hard when he was really young, younger than 7. And I remember he went, like kids sometimes, or you feel this, if you ever trip and fall, what's one of the first things you feel? Well, pain. You get like pissed off. You get mad. That was so stupid. Yeah. It's like, oh, I'm so stupid. I'm such an idiot. It's like we go right into self-deprecation, like, can't believe I did that. But really, behind that, we're like, oh, this hurts. And then behind that, we're like, I'm really embarrassed. I feel like a loser. So I watched my son at a very young age go, like, what a kid will do is they'll go to like hit their mom. That's just what they do because they're mad. So he stubbed his toe, and he went to be like, hit me. He was probably like 4 or 5. And I'm all like, and then he like stopped, and he's like, oh, and he heard, and he's like, I just feel embarrassed. And then he started to cry. So he had this like plethora, cornucopia of being able to express life. For a young man, like that brought me to tears, So I don't have the answer except for like going back to reminding ourselves that by nature, it's epic. There's a range. And by, the second thing is to be able to align with what is, not more than what it is, not less, but be with what is, to be able to align with it, to be able to extract the gem out of it. Because we are supposed to have cosmic bumpers along the way. And I think that a lot of times we go, well, you know, I had a shitty childhood and I didn't get this or that. And really, we have these cosmic bumpers that put us back on track. So if we can sort of be able to be with all of those things that are even hard, that we think we're messed up with, and realize that you're not alone. And that's the third thing. You know, you're not alone on the journey. And so I don't know if that really answers your question.
I love that. I think that was incredible. And I hope maybe somebody pulled a little golden nugget of information.
I thought that was like 17
Yeah.
experiences of trauma.
Especially as a parent, I think that's such valuable.
Totally. It's not how long you have with your child, it's how present you are with them and how courageous you are to just be you.
And you can take that into any relationship.
Yeah, without going into
Oh my
tangent,
God,
how
yes.
important is that with relationships, right?
Yeah.
Because I think it was used to be so much surrounded by like, oh, how good our relationship is, how much time I spend with you. Now as I've gotten older, it's like, no, like it's the depth of presence and like just appreciating time you have.
Yeah. Are we
Thank
here now?
Yeah, we've been talking for a
I
guys.
was gonna say, thank
Yeah,
God
we gotta-
I said 60 minutes because we're already at like
Woo!
95.
It's like we've been here for a while.
Yes, we have.
To have you guys back sometime.
Totally.
So
I'll catch
let's just finish with how we always finish. Both of you, can you both tell us individually what you think how living with wildfire is?
Okay.
I was like,
I'm just receiving him and getting awkward. Well, it's the ability to be awkward. But Wild Heart, like it's kind of like, I don't think Chris was even acknowledging this, but we all saw it. It's like he keeps going for it, right? And he keep like for me, everybody knows like if they were to put one word to me, they'd be like love. Like that woman just loves. She just loves through all the shit, and she can put silver lining on shit. And I talked to you about Brene Brown's like triad, you know, strong back, soft front, and wild heart. And the wild heart is the ability to like, you know, I'll go running in the wintertime with no shoes on. I just, whatever it is, you know, I talk to the sun and talk to my mom, like showing up and knowing that life is epic and knowing that I am an integral piece of that, and that no matter what happens, whether we have gone into the muck and we have had our hearts ripped and shredded, like it's not meant to shrink. We're actually meant to have those pieces that continue to allow ourselves to move and grow forward. And I think the part of being the wild heart also for me has a lot to do with just allowing yourself to eat humble pie every day. Like just allow it. Like you are in this human experience. You are so much more than the human experience, but you are in this body, in this beautiful, divine encasing. And so it's just like show up in love every day, whatever that means for you. Even when you don't feel it, know that it exists. And so that's what it wild heart means.
wow.
Thank you.
For me, it's really checking in with yourself and being in alignment with yourself and listening to your heart. And I feel like when you show up and listen to your heart, that can come off as being wild and crazy. But when you really listen to it, it's like, no, this is not wild and crazy. This is who I am. This is how I want to express myself here right now. And I think for, you know, a lot of times when people around us are like, what the hell are you doing? Like, you're crazy. Why would you do that? It's like, yeah, that's wild and crazy to them. But like living from here is like, yeah, fuck yeah. Like, go ahead, go on. And that's your wild heart. And like really listening to that every day as best that you can. Because you know, it's not easy always. But to allow yourself that, I think that's living with a wild heart.
Yeah.
That's what blazes the trail.
Yeah.
You don't have to live within the culture, but you can live in the culture.
Yeah.
But you don't have to be defined by it.
That's
beautiful.
I love that.
Thank you guys so
Thank
much.
you so much.
Can you do like a goosebumps
Yes.
hug?
I always love watching back and watching two group hugs. So just before we end, where can people find you?
WellSpringDover.com. We're on Facebook, WellSpring Center for Wellbeing. Check out our video. It's both on our website and on our Facebook or Instagram. Also, WellSpring Center for Wellbeing.
Perfect.
All right, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Have an
Thank
amazing
you.
week. Live with a wild heart. We're going to end with some
Yay.
squats.